Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pro Tri News. I'm your host, Kyle Glass, joined by the usual Talbot Cox, Pat Lemieux, and Mark Matthews. Mark, how's your time in Dubai?
Really good. Bit of a hotel trip, like you're just here for a race, but the experience was just amazing. You can see Kat behind me getting ready to go to the gym. The hosting, hospitality, everything I'll come on to in a bit. Brilliant, mate.
Nice. Pat, you're about to leave for vacation. Thank you for making time for us today.
Yeah, right on. Gwen and I are headed to Maui this afternoon. We're gonna go there for 3 days for our 10-year anniversary.
There you go. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a month. It was a month or so ago, but we're celebrating now.
There you go. Broken scapula and all.
Exactly.
Nice. And Talbot Cox.
How we doing? I am happy and sad the triathlon season is coming. Well, I would say came to an end. I don't count
We got one
Worlds.
more 70.3 Worlds.
Ooh, and the start list at 70.3 World is wild. There's great start lists on both sides. That's a big shout. I know what you mean, but that's a big shout.
It's hard to mentally prepare.
A month gap in December.
Yeah. Yeah. So
anyway, we had a mega race this weekend. That's what we're here to talk about, right? We are here to talk about the T100 Grand Final. Probably cover some of our thoughts on like the series as a whole, successes, failures, and things like that. I'll just say the race was excellent. The organisation was superb. They were kind of stuck with the race starting at 1:30, which was a problem. It means it's in the height of the day. However, the staff, like whether it's the organising lot, whether it's Dylan, whether it's the guys behind the scene, could not have done more to make it workable. As in like ice availability, water, shaded parts for the athlete, air-conditioned tents. That was superb. And then the athletes then delivered, I think, two of the most exciting races we've had on T100.
agree.
Yep.
Oh, am I just going to do the whole show, boys? What? I mean, when you talking? Or, no. I know it's early in the morning there, but I'm pretty hungover here. Right. So on to the race then. The women went first on Saturday, and they put on a bit of a clinic. Really, the swim was a bit slower than you would expect. Meaning it was quite a big group, but the real surprise there was that Julie Duron and Ashley Gentle were both at the front right from the start, and it actually took Taylor Knibb until more like 15k before she ended up solo, which is kind of unheard of. And then Julie, Ashley Gentle, and Imogen Simmons were the next strongest cyclists. They sort of worked together, and they really limited their losses. Imogen picked up a 30-second penalty. She said they weren't riding that hard, and she was able to ride straight back across to Julie and Ashley. And I must admit, I don't know about you guys, I thought for sure Taylor was going to get beat when it was only like a 2.5-minute gap off the bike.
Well, and then the gap came down so quickly, right? So it was like if you were doing the math, you were like, okay, well, the catch is going to happen, at 6 or 7K to go. And then we were all watching, right? And it came down to just under 50 seconds. And then all of a sudden it went back out 2 seconds to like 52, 53. And we're like, what happened here? And then Ashley was walking. And so, excuse me. Really exciting, I guess, in that case, because it was just, we didn't, like I said, when the clock was running down, I was like, okay, Ash looks fantastic here. I think the catch is going to happen. And then all of a sudden it was like, nope, the other way. And then Julie Duran ended up running past Ashley inside a K to go. It was, I thought it was really exciting.
So Ashley suffered the same. She had some gut issues as well. Actually, so did Anne Haug. And obviously, as everyone in the world has now seen, so did Taylor Knibb. And I think it was a bit of a combination of anything for Ashley. Ashley's firmly denying it was the heat, but she's more kind of doing that tongue in cheek. Like she doesn't want to believe that she can succumb to the heat. But then there were races further down that really, really mattered because you had Flora Duffy running through fastest run split of the day, by the way, by almost 90 seconds, like unbelievably fast running. What's wild to me is Ashley Gentle and Julie Duron didn't even have the top 3 fastest run splits. You would have had them for shoe-ins. You would have had Anne Haug as well, Tamara Jewett. In the end, it was Flora Duffy, Taylor Spivey, and then Kat. But there were some big jumps, some big movers. Flora Duffy moved up a whole bunch of places. Julie Duron, with 1 score less, finishes 3rd in the series. That's pretty wild. Kat moved up to 4th, which she's going to massively take. Flora into 5th. And I'll read the next out because these are the ladies that now have a guaranteed contract. You had Lucy Byram, 6th in the series, Laura Phillips, 7th, Indy Lee, 8th, Imogen Simmons, 9th, and Paula Finley, 10th. They will all be offered a guaranteed contract for next year, which is a huge kind of perk to have.
And Mark, what was the tone for the athletes that were, on the bubble for the top 10? Was that, we talked about that in last week's show, but was that something that today that they were, this weekend that they were like, okay, yeah, I really want to be in the top 10? Like, was there a theme there or a sigh of relief afterwards when they
Yeah, I
achieved
think
it?
so. Like the likes of Imogen Simmons, Indy Lee, Lucy Byram, people like that, it's pretty huge for them to guarantee this contract. Like, it's a lot of money. It's kind of life changing. It's essentially gives you a career rather than I hope to make some money. It's like, I will make money next year. I can plan my life around it. And then those that are just off that top 10, it becomes a bit interesting because Taylor Spivey, well, she's shown pretty quickly she can be fairly good at this.
Really good form. And
Yeah, so she
rigorous.
might be feeling pretty confident about it.
Yeah.
But then you have next up 12th, Lucy Charles Barkley. Well, they're offering her a contract, right? What I did learn today is they are going to go the next 6th based off rankings, pretty much, like world rankings, and a bit of a combination of that. And they're going to go 4 hot shots. That's what they briefed the athletes today. So yeah, that was the women's race. I was impressed already. Flora Duffy impressed me, I think, maybe the most. I think she could be really dangerous at this next year.
Yeah. Was there anything, Mark, particularly that stood out to you in the race that you were like, okay, this person kind of surprised me this year. This person kind of left me scratching my head.
I mean, yeah, like Julie Duran for me is, I don't know where she's come from, to be quite honest. I don't really know where she's come from World Triathlon, let alone this distance. It was only a few years ago that she couldn't run within a minute, even 90 seconds of the leaders in World Series races. And now she's consistently the second best middle distance triathlete in the world and the second best at the Olympics. So she's the big surprise for me. I don't know about you. Anyone else?
I think for me it was, I'd say Lucy Charles Barclay, in the sense that I thought she would have more of a forward facing, I guess, just in the results here. And then, the toggling between, this is what, if you go back to one of our original episodes, Talbot talked about, he said, this will be the highest rate of attrition that we've ever seen in the sport. And I think, the year that Lucy Charles had embodies that statement. So it was trying to do both, and then not getting to do either, right? Is ultimately what it boiled down to.
But there is athletes that did do both. It's just different mindset, right? Of like
Both series?
Yeah, both series.
I would say there's like 2 females that one female. There's one athlete that did it. It's Kat.
And it looks, all being touchwood, all being okay at 1 and 4th place in the other. So it was shown you can do pretty well at both of them. But I just don't think you'll be able to next year, because as we're learning slowly, it looks 9 to 10 races with 6 races as a minimum mandatory and 6 to count. So I don't think you can then add 5 other races on top of that. That's 11, which is actually the same as what Kat's done this year. But I don't think you can excel at one-off races. I think you can just be 90% all year, and 90% doesn't get you big wins. It gets you a lot of money, but it doesn't get you that huge win. So I don't think we'll see anyone else try and do both next year.
No, and I think we'll look at, in the women's field especially, women will look at performances like Annie Haug had at Roth, or Laura Philipp had in Nice, and go, okay, if I want to do one big one, what does that mean for my year? What does my year have to look like? It's got to look a little bit different. And I think that's probably where I don't know if we say success leaves clues, like that's where people will look at the 2024 season when they make decisions for 25.
So
yeah,
with where the season's going to start and when it's going to start, do you think we'll see people doing like early season Ironman to kind of solidify or get them a slot for Nice Kona? Or do you think it's going to be like these people are just going to be all in on T100.
I think you're going to have to look at some. There will be some people that potentially look outside of the pro series, maybe
Where
to
you-
grab an Ironman, and then they're going to look at, okay, am I going to maybe try and do 2 from the pro series? So I just think now, it's our understanding that there was this big Monday morning meeting in Dubai to get some clarity for the week, or sorry, for the series for next year. And so now I just think athletes are going to start talking to their coaches and their team to go, okay, what does 25 look like? Now I know, right?
And there were no big surprises. They've sort of been publicly saying 9 to 10 races. We've speculated, and Sam sort of hinted at that, yes, what we'll do is we'll just make more count. And I think 6 is a good number. I think I prefer it. I would like to see an athlete have to get it right more often. I don't think 3 races is enough to really win a series. It doesn't feel like enough. Whereas if you get it right 6 times or nearly right, that becomes interesting to me.
Yeah. Or at least makes the gaps so even that you're like, okay, well, I mean, this race is wide open. Like this year on the men's side, there was 4 people that could win the race, and on the women's
But I
side,
also thought
2.
I also don't really like how much it could change on the grand final. I don't think you should be able to go from like 11th to 3rd, or I don't think you should be able to go from 3rd to losing out completely based on one race. That's no longer a series either. That's almost like there's a bit of a precursor, and then there's a championship race.
Yeah.
So 6 races hopefully dilutes that importance of the grand final slightly. For me, which I think would be better.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got NAF Wi-Fi, boys. Just in case the listeners wonder why we're a bit disjointed, I'm dropping in and out your end. It's blooming hotel Wi-Fi, isn't it?
Well, it's working. It's working brilliantly right now. So yeah, hopefully it stays that way.
So should we roll the men's race?
The crazy thing too about the women's race is Taylor. I don't know if we'll see this next year, but was a perfect score, and I don't think that. I don't think I definitely wouldn't have expected that. I thought that maybe Ash or someone would have at least challenged her, but I mean, it's Taylor Knibb.
She's just been so like that, and that course honestly was almost the worst course for her. It was like a very salty, slow swim, so it was a big group close to her. It was quite technical, and I'll be honest, her technical skills did not shine during the race, but she just has the power, and her running is becoming a pretty reliable weapon that she can kind of just, she's not a weak runner anymore. She's not losing the mountains of time to anyone. I was a bit surprised with how weak Flora Duffy's riding was. I think it might come with a bit of time on the time trial bike.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I just thought, I guess it served her in the end, right? Like a little bit slower ride allowed her to have the fastest run split of the day. And so maybe that was the biggest piece there. But I certainly, I had her picked for up on the podium. Granted, she was only 1 spot off, but I think, the biggest thing is that I did think the ride would suit her a bit more.
Yeah. The thing that stood out to me was probably, Taylor Knibb might be the best triathlete we've ever seen at this point. Like, I'm not trying to glaze or just because it's one of Pat's athletes. Like, we've seen her go from short course to long course to middle distance, and there's really no, the biggest weakness then is her, I would say maybe her ability to ride technically or maybe transitions. But if you're looking at that, then that's it. You know what I mean?
I hope some of the courses next year exploit that bike handling a little bit more. I don't want dead turny kind of naff time trial courses. I'd like them flowing, but it makes it interesting, right? A few hilly courses like San Francisco is great. She was still amazing there. I don't want them to specifically affect Taylor. I just find them more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Balancing training, life, and traveling the world for races while staying healthy can be hard, and I always do my best to stay on top of things. Prioritizing sleep, nutrition, and recovery is a must, but sometimes you just get sick. With TeleRx, I know I can get my healthcare needs met easily online and straight to my doorstep when I'm in the US to get me back on track as soon as possible.
Should we do the men's race?
Yeah, let's dive into the men's race. So
I tell you what, Martin Van Riel almost broke off the front right at the start of the swim. He had a gap and he went for it. But it kind of came back together. Aaron Royal and some others covered it pretty well. And it was a massive group. But as we've seen in this T100, I think maybe 20 meters. And I think the difference in riding ability, that group never stays together. It blows apart out of transition. And you had some of the boys getting to work on the bike. The usual suspects up near the front, Alistair Brownlee, Freddie Funk was there. Carl Smith was there. Matthias Margier, Rico Bogan, etc. Yuri Cullen was in the front for a while. The first interesting bit came to me. I thought Carl Smith was excellent when that group split and Carl Smith found himself at the back. And he managed to cover the gap, get across it without taking Yuri and Justus Nieschlag with him, who then had a great run. So that was a really good move by Carl, really impressive. Ditlev was good a catch. He was down to like 45 seconds almost, and his seat post slipped, which cost him about a minute and a half stood still by the road getting it fixed, which is really annoying for him. And he got a bit of time back and eventually got off the bike about 90 seconds down. But as we've seen in the past, I thought we were going to have the exact same run with Carl Smith, Rico Bogan and Martin Van Riel absolutely dropping bombs on each other. But then Alistair Brownlee, he kind of fumbled in transition, came out 15 seconds down. I think could potentially really have helped his race. Someone told me this, I can't actually remember who said this to me, that him being stalled in transition meant that he didn't start running with Martin, etc. And he actually paced a brilliant race. And towards the back end, despite a little fall over, he reeled down Kyle Smith. So Martin Van Riel was dominant. He just waited, bided his time and dropped Rico. Rico was amazing in second. And then Alistair Brownlee third.
How elated were you, Mark?
Oh, mate. And it shows the fans he has around the big screen there. People were absolutely screaming and cheering. It was very cool.
Yeah.
I was happy to see him execute a good race for sure, Alistair.
Yeah, and it's been a while since he's been really on a podium worth mentioning. We were in our group text saying 70.3 Worlds 2019 was the last time that it was like, this is the Alistair Brownlee that we remember.
This is his best race since then.
Yeah.
Rico being so good all year, does it mean that Talbot was chatting shit when he said that 70.3 Worlds last year was the weakest race going? Or is Rico actually really, really good?
I was thinking about that yesterday. I think I eat my words a little bit. I mean, he did have a great year. Well,
not fully, though.
Like 2 to 3 good races when it mattered too. So
he is very good, right? Does Rico have a chance of winning 70.3 Worlds?
I would say no.
Why?
Maybe so.
I think Yellow Geens is probably going to win 70.3 Worlds or Hayden Wild.
Look, whether he wins it or not, he showed yesterday he can be a contender come December,
sure.
right? And so let's just say that. I think what blew my mind was, we saw Rico Bogan in Miami back in March, and he was, to put it lightly, average at best.
Definitely,
in Miami. And so to see him, all of a sudden at the pointy end yesterday and really forcing it and playing a bit of offense, I thought, wow, that's certainly a big turnaround from when we saw him in March. And so, yeah, I think anything's possible. I think a podium is realistic come 70.3 Worlds, but, we got to give some respect to the fact that, the guy is the current 70.3 world champion. So let's not count him out.
And how good is Martin Van Riel?
I think that he.
Nah, he's insane right now.
He's the best at this distance, for sure. The middle.
I would be curious to hear what he says went wrong in Vegas, because that was unlike him, or Yell is just that good now, changing, working with the same coach that Patrick Lang's working with now. So
I think it was one too many nights at the casino leading into the race for Martin was the big thing about Vegas. But yeah, I think this 3 to 4 hour race, which is 70.3 or T100, I think Martin is head and shoulders above everyone else. It'll be interesting when Hayden Wild comes across, maybe gets a hot contract next year, that maybe he may be able to challenge Martin Van Riel. But as of right now, Martin Van Riel's king.
And And are we still hearing whispers that Martin's thinking about Cozumel?
I mean, he's on the start list and it's next week. So, Mark, did you get any inkling from him that he was going to be doing Cozumel?
I don't think he would do Cozumel. I think it's too close to the race. I think that he's gonna
He
realize how
said he
much
was
money
going
he
to
just
skip
won.
70.3 Worlds and do Cozumel. Last time I talked to him in Vegas. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, we'll find out this week, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna know. So,
I mean, you have to get I think it's top 5 or top 6 to get a slot. And if you look at the start list, I mean, no offense to everyone else, but I think Martin could turn up and bag a top 5 and get a slot to Nice.
all right. So we did this for the women's, but what were the big surprises for the men's series for the year?
For me, on the men's side, I really thought Jason West was going to be a lot better than what he was. He was kind of all of our picks to win the series, and him consistently being almost outside the top 10, aside from the race in Vegas, was kind of a pretty big shocker. And so he was the one that surprised me of like not really meeting like where I thought he would be. I thought the wild cards, not even the hot shots, but the wild cards. So like your Kyle Smith and Yuri Kulin, they really delivered and proved that there's athletes that are not on this tour that should get a look or get a slot just to see what they could do. So that's what I had.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, Jason West was a big one for me as well. And then I think, obviously, even Kyle Smith, right? I mean, we had Kyle Smith on an episode back in the early spring, and I thought, man, this guy's talking a big game, and how's he gonna level up? And he did. I mean, he beyond leveled up. I mean, he exceeded my expectations at a level that I certainly did not think he could. So that was a big one for me was Kyle Smith. And, again, I picked Jason West to win the series. He doesn't even have a guaranteed contract for the series next year. And so
Yeah, that's a huge surprise, that, isn't it? Like
that was a big one for me. So he just couldn't ever put it together. So where does that leave him for next year? I don't know. And I think that's going to be the big thing is how many athletes were, especially on the men's side, right? These athletes that are outside of the top, 15 for their world rankings, top 16 for the world rankings that had spots on the tour this year that aren't going to get it, right? I might give one other one was Sam Long. I think he showed he has capacity to win these with 2 second places. I think that hopefully next year, if he does this series, he just goes in with a little bit more focus and isn't trying to do an Ironman in the middle, isn't trying to do such and such, isn't trying to go to Chile in January. He can win one of these things if he focuses.
Yeah. And he's already got a slot for Nice, so hopefully he won't want to do any of that stuff. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for him, it's got to be this and just Nice. You don't need to do another race before that. You don't need to do anything else. He does need to swim, and I don't know how he improves that. We've all got an opinion on it, but until he improves his swimming, I don't think I see him winning one of these, not with the likes of Martin van Riel and that now in the game. Magnus Ditlev's struggling to make the front of the group, coming out 90 seconds down. Sam Long is not making the group, coming out 4 minutes down. So that needs to change first as well.
especially next year, whenever you have people like Leo Berger and Vincent Louis coming up that are potentially get a hotshot contract, like this swim's only going to get faster.
Yeah, true. I take it we all agree that Alistair Brownlee's shoe-in favourite to win the series next year, yeah?
Oh, maybe. We can see it.
It was magnificent. One more K would have won it, easy. So
we did it for the women. Let's talk about the series a little bit for the men. So, I mean, you look at the top 10. Fred Funk is one position away from being outside the top 10. He had 1 point over Sam Laidlaw, who finished 11th. So, Yuri gets a guaranteed contract for next year. Kyle Smith gets guaranteed contract for next year. Both are wild cards. So that's huge for them. people outside the top 10 that'll probably get some sort of whether it's the ranking contract or a hot shot. I mean, you look at both the wild cards, Mika Newton, Justus Nieschlag, and Sam Laidlow, your 2023 Ironman World Champ. So,
Mark,
I don't think Sam Laidlow's going to do it.
You don't think so?
No.
Was there any chatter, Mark, around trying to figure out who the 4 hot shots for the men were going to be?
Because actually, no.
Okay.
There's a bit of speculation, but there's no one's letting on at all. What they have said is they want contracts signed, like basically straight after 7.3 Worlds. Yeah.
Yep.
Because then they can basically see what the end of the year rankings looking like and all that stuff. So we know we'll get decisions this side of Christmas, which is good. That's much better than last year. We've got the courses, which is much better. There's a very positive feel around T100 at the moment. Investors, staff, and I will say mostly the athletes as well. I think I've been a little bit too critical and skeptical of it. I'm slowly getting really bought into the idea that this could be around for a few more years.
No, I think we talked since last week, right? There's been some things that came to note with some new funding that the T100 is going to bring on. And I think what that did was it brought a monumental shift towards, how positive the T100 is, right? And I think there's been a lot of speculation around, for me, if this becomes true with the new level of funding, I'm sorry, we got to go back to an M&A talk with Ironman and T100. This is, what I said last week about Ironman losing a bunch of their sponsors. That's all true. This is an opportunity to potentially, if it wasn't supporting the Ironman Pro Series to some extent, there's been whispers about a contender series from the T100, right? And how you break into it. So effectively, they're going to mirror what they do in short course, right? So you've got a World Series and then you've got World Cups. The T100 is effectively going to create a World Cup series for athletes to break into. And I think this is when Scott Derew's got to call up Sam and say, Sam, we got to figure out a way for me to be your contender series. I got 10 races for you. Ironman is fantastic at it as an events organization. And T100 has to recognize that and realize they're not in the events game yet. They're getting better at it, but I just think this is a bridge moment here that everybody has to look at seriously. And I know they probably won't, but I still think for the sport, I'd love to see some cohesion here.
Yeah, I just from chats around, the relationship is poor between the two, and I think really poor. And I would say maybe even I don't think it's a recoverable relationship. Certainly not for next year for the contender series. But I'm with you. I hope I'm wrong there. I would love to see that. That works really well. Talking about events they organise, do you want to hear about the biggest sandbagging behavior in the history of the world? The 5K music night run last night, which everyone kind of dresses up for, and it's a 5K race, was won by Jan Frodeno in full carbon shoes, race vest kit. He went absolute full tilt and smoked the 5K run race last night.
What was his time? What was his time?
I don't know his time, but even he said, "Oh, I'm a little embarrassed by that." And I heard that Chris Gemmell was so annoyed by how much Jan had beat him by or something, he chose to run back from the race. But because the way the roads are, he ran back from the 5K night race to the hotel, which turned out to be 24K. So he didn't get back till 10 o'clock at night, having just ran 29K in the evening heat of Dubai.
Good grief.
That's pretty funny. Jan's first win of the year.
Yeah. Commentating, what do you think about it? I thought it was pretty good. I thought the coverage was good.
I think the commentary is really, really good. I think the coverage that they provide is really, really good. The graphics, all of that. I think the T100 is probably the new standard as far as broadcast in triathlon.
Yeah, I would agree.
There's nothing more that you can say.
Yeah, and their athlete experience for those participating is a completely different league to everything else. It's why Cat will sign the contract. It's actually really fun to come to these races.
Yeah.
You're all in the same hotel. You made loads of friends. You're completely looked after. It's a no-brainer, I think.
There's only one thing that doesn't look good on the broadcast, and that's how many people are at the races. But that's
Yep.
every triathlon that you go to. Like, most triathlons don't have that many people, I think.
No,
Unless outside of like world champs and stuff, like there's not really that many people that come to triathlon races.
It's also just like it's not in the cities, right? Like if you do it in London, loads of people.
Yeah.
Because there's people all around. It's easy to get to. Here, it's on a race course where you've got to take a 25-minute taxi to get there, and most of the time you're there because you raced the other race, and you then want to stand out in the sun for ages. Like it's getting better, and they are putting on a better live atmosphere experience. Big screens, commentators there, games being played and stuff. I've got a bit of faith that could grow.
Yeah, Vegas was awesome. The LED walls that they had around the courses, the people, the hospitality, all those things paired together, like that's like. I'm not going to compare it to the $25,000 experience you get with Paddock Club from Formula One, but that's about as close as we can get with triathlon.
Yeah, and you mentioned light boards. Let's give a shout out to, I don't know if you did it while my internet was down, David McNamee. I watched his finish there, and this was his race where he was retiring. I got a little bit emotional.
Yeah, I agree with you. David is such a cool guy, and that was so cool to see. Just the end of his chapter, end of his career. I got emotional too. Was just so stoked for him. So he threw up another Instagram post saying that it'll be interesting to see how he fills his days now, but he's excited to see what's ahead. And no plans yet. So yeah, awesome for him.
Back with us, Mark.
It's tragic. I
Yeah.
presume Talbot took over flawlessly and just said David's a great guy.
Yeah.
Loved by everyone
All
here.
around.
And I think he'll probably stay involved. He's on the athletes board.
I'll stick around.
Yeah, so kudos, David. Thanks, mate, for the ride.
Yeah. Anything else about commentary, broadcast, etc.?
I would say something interesting, which this is only two athletes, and I don't mean to bag on them, but some athletes are just not fit for 20 meters, and that is Tamara Jewett and Jason West. And I just think that their entire year was a rough year with that 20-meter draft rule. And I see Jason West winning, even with his performance of somebody. I see him winning a lot of 70.3s if he wouldn't have taken the T100 contract. But how would you know? I mean, we thought that he was going to win the series. So this 20-meter, though, exposes people bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're both the men and the women are just riding so much better. I mean, the front of the men's race is so strong. And then even in the women's race, you know, Kat rode her second best power of the year, I think. Yeah, she had she hit a speed bump and basically broke a part of her bike. It just snapped. Like it's not a design fault or anything. She hit it so hard she almost crashed. But she still rode her best power outside of San Francisco for the year. And if you look at her bike split, there's about 7 girls doing the same thing. So if you're Tamra, who is slower than those athletes anyway, Tamra's got to be having to push 235, 240 watts if she was extremely aero. I don't think she is. You know, Tamra is not pushing 250, 260 watts, like at 55 kilos or whatever she weighs. Yeah, I agree. Can we do a lap on anyone brave enough to do it? What do we reckon to Chelsea Sodaro?
I think that she'll do maybe the Ironman Pro Series next year. Or
yeah. I could see that.
I think she said it a lot, was like she's been going through a lot this year, and to move, change coaches, change bike partners, the lot is probably a bit much for anyone. And so I think that at this point she had to just like bag it in for the season.
Look, I put her in the same boat as honestly, I think Lucy Charles has more decisions to make than Chelsea Sodaro does, because at least Chelsea had a great race in Nice, and we all agreed, like, hey, that was a great performance on the day. So she can look to 25 with a little bit of clarity and go, hey, I can do the Ironman Pro Series. I can do the Ironman Pro Series and maybe just do 2 Ironmans. Like, I think that's how she will look at it. The bigger one for me is, what does Lucy Charles do? because she didn't really get to do any racing this year. So she doesn't even have a data point on what she should do for next year. So, I mean, I know that there will be a lot of ideas from her team around her, but, I'm Talbot, do you have any, thoughts there? Like, what should she actually do next year?
I think she was dealing with an injury that she didn't want it to get worse, and so I think she just simply said, "I'm going to go and recover this injury and return back to normal racing next year." So this is something that I see. It's not that it's an issue with T100 series, but something that will be interesting is you have the athletes that deserve to be there, and then you have the athletes that haven't proven that they should be there. Your likes of like and what I mean by that, I mean like your more Ironman athletes, the big name athletes that will not be on the contracts next year. And it will be interesting on how much hype goes around these races, not in any way discrediting the races, but it'll be interesting to see the races next year that you're going to lose like the likes of a Sam Laidlow. I don't like what Mark said. Wow, I don't really believe that he would go back. And you're losing a lot of the big names, but it's going to be more high caliber athletes are going to come in, but you're going to lose a lot of your TV star names, if that makes
Dan
sense.
Hogg.
So the number one gap is education. So really educating the masses on how to fuel for performance. This is a performance line. The issue that we were running into and why we said let's create our own is because not too many products out there where it has everything we specifically want for an athlete to take. We know that works for athletes just based on the science that is out there. So the fact that we can combine all the knowledge that we've taken from listening to the sports scientists out there and the latest research, and we're up to date with that, I feel like we're in the forefront of nutrition for our athletes and for those around.
We do need to share a statistic, right? We need to share
Yeah.
that. We need to share that the T100 contracted 20 athletes in 2024 for the women's side.
Yeah.
9 of the 20 did not fulfill their agreement, right?
Yeah.
And we'll give look, we had two women get pregnant, no problems there. We had a woman retire, no problems there. But
Well, yeah, but it is a problem. Like we're not going to bag on Daniela Rife, but it is a problem. Like you're.
No, but I guess my point.
Yeah.
My point with her is that she just owned it, right? Like when she saw the wheels falling off, she's like, I can't recover this. I'm actually just going to have to retire a year early now. And I think that was again, it goes back to what Talbot said. People are going to be injured. What's this going to mean? I never saw a world where that we were going to see 9 of 20 miss their agreement.
Yeah, and then on the men's side, what do we have? 6? 4 on the men's side. I mean,
a lot as well.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
it's probably the injury clause that maybe could be played around with a little bit.
Yeah. So how do they resolve that for 25?
Say you're not allowed to get injured.
I mean, I think what they're going to have to do. I don't know. I don't have a great idea. I don't have a great idea right now. I mean, do you say
once you miss one?
I mean, if I'm T100, I'm not giving anyone else really another chance. I just think there's way too many athletes that took contracts that didn't focus on the series and focused on Ironman and robbed them blind. And if I'm T100, I'm not taking back a lot of those athletes.
Yep.
So,
I mean that's I think there's 2 things going on here, right?
And you won't really have to because they'll finish outside the top 10 anyway. So
yeah, but I would say there was a bunch that thought that they could that they could be cute and do both. And like we said, both on the men and the women's side. I mean, it was really Cat Matthews was the only one. You also have we could look at Magnus Ditlev, who was, I would say, highly successful in both. He would have placed, realistically, he would have been second or third in the series had his seat post not slipped. So you combine that with a podium at Ironman World Championships. But there's a bunch that simply couldn't do it, right? And I think that the T100 needs to be really aware when they're signing athletes. So they got to say, like, look, what else are you doing? Because yeah, there's a bunch that, in my opinion, they got burned by.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. So,
but I still go back to they're going to lose a lot of big names, and there's nothing. I know that the athletes are not that good at this racing series, but losing the likes of like Rudy Von Berg, Sam Long, Sam Laidlaw. I mean, those are eyeballs.
Of course.
And you will replace them with an athlete like Leon Chevalier, which, yes, will have a good French market. But
and Vincent Louis for the hotshots. I mean, Leo Berger, Hayden Wild, like they're going to get some names that are going to come back around, surely, from hotshot. I mean, we can't say for sure if they're going to take their hotshot contracts, but
what do we think Christian and Gustav are going to do? Are they going to apply for a hotshot?
No, I don't think they'll do a single race. They're all in an Ironman.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it goes back to what I said originally, really early on, right? Was the T100 needs to create some of their own stars here, and if a Sam Laidlaw doesn't re-sign with the series, say, look, that's okay. We're going to focus on these up-and-comers that we have coming in.
Martin Van Riel, make him the star.
Exactly. Like, I don't think it's seen as it's not a devastating blow for me if, Christian doesn't do the series. Would we love to see him in it? Yes. But they've got to make their own superstars in it, right? And let's use Kyle Smith as an example, right? I mean, what he's doing in the T100 is amazing. So, yeah, I think they can make it work. But I think they've really got to look at the attrition rate that they had on both the men and the women's side this year and realize I think it was 15 of the 40 contracted athletes did not fulfill their agreement, which is a failure from both parties, I believe.
15 of the 40. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. All right. What grade are we giving the T100? First season done. Look at the season as a whole from where we were at in Miami, middle of the season, all the way now to finishing in Dubai.
Well, I'd have to go back and look at what grade I gave them for Miami, right? Because I think we were at a D+ or a C- there. And is it fair to say that I think that they've gotten better throughout the entire year? And I think they end up somewhere, for me, they end up at a B+ or an A-. And I think from athlete support, it's an A+. I think that from, courses, we'll probably could give it a B- across the races that they had. From a media standpoint and what they're trying to do for the athletes, I think you give it an A+.
Yeah.
For the fan experience, it's an A. But for the actual crowd attendance, I mean, you're giving it a C+, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'd say a D-.
Sure. And so I just think overall for the year, I go B+. I just think that's where I end up. Like, I think there's a lot of things that, well, again, we're talking internally. We talk about Ironman versus T100 right now. I feel like T100's got a lot of momentum, a lot of great momentum right now.
Yeah.
And I think the athletes feel that as well. And I'm optimistic and I'm excited for, what they're going to do in 2025.
Yeah. Same. Talbot?
I mean, I would probably just ripple effect all that. I think, and I'm sure when you're on the athlete board and the athlete meetings and stuff, they're like, man, we have a lot of things that we would change this year, and I would still give them an A-, and they're going to be even better next year. So, athlete experience. If you're one of the top athletes in the world, this is a no-brainer series.
Yeah, 100%. I would give the same grade that you guys gave. T100 has only gotten better all season. They learned from some of the mistakes in Miami, and there was definitely some growing pains. But the product that they've been able to put out consistently between the broadcast, the experience, is head and shoulders above anything else that you've experienced.
No,
So
I think at the end of the year, Sam has the ability to walk into investor meetings with his head held very high and say, "I'm excited to share this product and this opportunity with you guys." And I think that that's where he's got a ton of momentum and a ton of excitement around what they are building, right? I think it goes without saying a real notable and special mention for me is that, I don't know his exact title. I'll call it Head of Athlete Affairs, Dylan McNeese, who's really in charge of the pro athletes, from their flights, from what they need on the ground to explaining the courses. Dylan does a ton of work, and he does not go unnoticed for it, right? He's somebody that the athletes can rely on for the right answers and for him to go to bat for the athletes if something needs to be changed on course. So yeah, I think they've got a real star there with Dylan.
yeah. Patrick as well. Patrick's done so much stuff for them, the COO, on the ground. He went to school in Oklahoma. So shout out to Patrick.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll see. I think I'm excited for I can't believe 70.3 Worlds we're still like 26 days away from it.
It's the longest season in triathlon history.
But it sounds like they're all going to be like that from now on, right?
Yeah.
They're going to start in March. They're going to end in December.
Next year it'll end in November, which will be much better for everyone. 70.3 Worlds is in November. This race in Dubai is in November, a week apart. So you're not going to have all the athletes that are going to be able to do 70.3 Worlds and the grand final. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Unless they have one more race that they're going to announce maybe in Australia in late November or early December. So
unreal. Talbot, what are we missing? What haven't we covered today?
I mean, I think that's about all of it. It's like I said earlier, it's a long year, and that's about it.
Man,
At post Kona down is a lot for me. Just like triathlon
crash. Well, Ironman Cozumel's coming up this weekend. You have Ann Reichman, Penny Slater, Julia Limo on the women's side. Goes down the list. 77 soft score, so not as many people as what you would think. On the men's side, Martin Van Riel is number one on the start list. Next is Leon Chevalier, hot off his fourth place, defending champ. Cameron Worf, who recently got his Instagram account back, it looked like, after being hacked. And Arnold Gilo, who didn't have the Kona he wanted. Chris Leiferman, who didn't have the Kona he wanted. Bart Arnault, who's trying to get back an early knee slot, it seems. And on the men's side, it's about an 86 soft score, with Martin Van Riel being the driving factor in that. Obviously, if Martin doesn't race, the soft score will vary and change quite a bit. But it will be an exciting race to watch. You cannot watch that race, but you can watch the tracker. So, hot takes?
I think Martin will dust that entire field. He is going to race, and he's going to dust those guys. So I think that he'll cruise his way to a victory and set him up for next year's Nice World Championship.
Yeah, I agree. It would take some unforeseen thing from Martin, whether he gets sick in the race or before the race, just from being from the
Don't
travel.
drink the water, Martin.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, and I'm not in any way knocking T100, but you have the T100 world champion who clearly sees the value in Ironman and is already setting up his year for next year to peak at Ironman World Championship.
Yep. No. I mean, that's obviously the big card that Ironman has, right? Is the Ironman World Championships still carry so much more weight. Which will kind of transition us into my first hot take. Do you guys mind if I drop one here?
Oh boy.
That's fine. I just can we maybe have the Ironman knock it off with not being able to say T100 anymore? Can we live in a world where there's some harmony?
But it goes both ways, Pat. It goes both ways.
No.
Because in the race, they were like, Taylor, how does it feel to win your first world championship? And it's like, Taylor's already won 2 of these.
No, but that's okay. But I'm going to push back a little bit on there. That was Jan who asked that question, I believe, who didn't probably understand some of the how to navigate this. Sam, for instance, when he came on our podcast, Sam Renouf, the T100 CEO, he has no problem saying Ironman. He has no problem saying when an athlete does an Ironman race. It's got no issues with it. It's a 4-letter word. Ironman can't say T100, and I think well, Mark touched on it earlier. There's a huge void in between these two organizations, and the animosity is really high. I would love, and I'm happy to be the mediator, I would love if they could start trying to rebuild a little bit of a relationship. And I think an easy place to start would say, hey, look, we understand athletes are going between 2 series, but they've got to be able to say, hey, I'm using this as preparation. I'm using this race as preparation for the Ironman World Championships. Or, hey, to get ready for Ironman World Championships, actually, when I did two T100 races in the last 12 weeks, it was great. That just seems like a logical and easy place to start for me. And I think both sides need to have a little bit of a truce there and say, hey,
It's actually bad for our sport that they won't mention any of the other races. In tennis, they mention going to Indian Wells and doing this cup race. It's not all like we're only talking about the majors type of situation. Like there's other tennis events that go on around the world.
This would be an easy olive branch for me if I was, and maybe they don't want one. Maybe that's the real problem is neither of them want that. But I think that what you just said, Kyle, for the sport, for the good of the sport, it needs to exist.
Yeah.
And this is one where again an easy one. We talked about the 20-meter draft rule. This is just a phone call. This is just a phone call saying, hey, Sam, Scott DeRue here. I'm gonna lift the T100 name ban within our media organization. I hope you can do the same. We got to work for the good of the sport here, and I think that's an easy one. Doesn't cost any money. It's super easy.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think Talbot agrees. There we go. Hot take that I had: Taylor Knibb will go on a longer win streak than Daniela Reef did. Daniela won, I believe it was 20 races in a row in the span of like 2.5 years. So I think that Taylor Knibb's the athlete that could do that.
I don't like to play these games.
You don't like to play those games?
I mean, like
I don't want to.
No offense against Daniela Reef. She was winning like Ironman Switzerland against an amateur athlete, and she was winning by 45 minutes. I mean, it's nah.
All right.
I mean, look, Kyle. Look, is it a nice thing to do? Sure, yeah. And there also needs to be, if we're going to support Daniela's side, like Daniela's won how many Ironman World Championships?
10 total. 5 70.3s and 5 Ironmans.
So I mean, all we got to respect Daniela. Like Taylor's got some catching up to do. Can she do it? Certainly. Can she overcome it? Probably. Potentially she's got the capacity to. But let's be fair. I want to be super fair to both, right? Yeah. I want to be super respectful of both, and I don't want to put the other pieces like, I don't know, undue pressure on athletes to
we finally have a LeBron James versus Michael Jordan GOAT conversation potentially at the end of this.
I don't know until there's a really good standard, because you could what about Paula Newby Frazier? Why aren't we talking about her? She won it how many times? 9 times, Kona?
6, yeah, I thought, yeah.
6, yeah, so Next one. Can Martin Van der Riel win Nice next year by 5 minutes? I would say
not
no.
by 5
No.
minutes. No.
I mean, we had never even seen the guy do a Ironman yet, so we'll start there. Go for it, Kyle.
There's a few athletes that should still get contracts next year that had injuries this year that prevented them from meeting the contracted number of races. I think that you look at athletes like Sam Laidlow, athletes like Lucy Charles Barclay, those are people that give you eyeballs. I think that those are athletes that 100% should get a contract for next year, even though they dealt with some injuries this year that prevented them from meeting those contracted number of races. I think that those are athletes that bring you enough.
I would say there's one good argument for an athlete, and that's who's definitely not an injury, furthest from an injury, which is Holly Lawrence, who had a baby. Other than that, I don't see those other two athletes racing. I don't see any other athletes that would pull out that clause. I think Holly showed that she's one of the best athletes in the world back in Miami, and I think she's going to come back swinging next year. I would give her a contract. Outside of that, I can't see any other athletes
Getting the contract after.
I mean, I don't see Sam taking it. I don't see Lucy taking it. Maybe a wild card here and there, but yeah.
Look, I just think it goes back to what I said for these hotshot contracts is that you essentially need to make a resume, and you got to send it to Dylan and Sam and say, if you're trying to get one of these 4 spots, which I think there's going to be double-digit athletes applying for, you're going to have to be real explicit and clear in your intentions for the series for next year. And I would be saying, hey, this is my race plan. I'm just doing your series. And I think that behind closed doors, they're going to look really closely at that and go, hey, this athlete is just going to do our series. They're not going to be experimenting with the longer stuff. And I think that's where they're going to have to take some chances and say, let's invest in some athletes that just want to do the T100 distance.
What if there's athletes that want to do the short course distance and the T100 distance, like WTCS racing?
I think you could, but I think that the short course, the super short course athletes, you've got a little bit more, I would almost say, volatility with injury because the actual discipline is a little bit more violent and given the speed, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that there's some people that you could take a chance on.
Yeah.
But I think that T100 is in the driver's seat. I don't think that they should really be investing in athletes that want to go dual series. I think they should be saying, no, look, we're King Kong right now. You're gonna.
Yeah, I wouldn't even entertain it. I'd ask them straight up. Is your focus next year Kona or Nice? Next.
Yep.
Then you got an athlete who's going to target their
Is your
series
focus
all year long.
Wollongong next year? Next. That brings me into the next hot take. All these short course athletes that have expressed interest in going long should get the hot shot contracts for next year, the 4 hot shots. Sam from Triathlon Insights put it up. I mean, this is not going to be a popular opinion based on all the long course folks, but if you look at it from the men's side, you could literally offer 4 short course athletes: Vincent Louis, Hayden Wild, Leo Berger, and you're essentially out of hot shots. And those are all people that can immediately come in and immediately be competitive at this distance.
So, and is there a world where everyone seems pretty confident that like Sam Laidlow's not going to take it, right? So then what happens if they go down the ranking and they just go through they do the top 10, then they go through the next 6, and there's 6 leftover hot shots? Are they going to go 6, or are they going to keep rolling down that world ranking list? I mean, I think they should.
They're going down the world ranking list. That's what's been posted on the website.
Yeah, but are they going to? But they're going to go 6 on the world ranking list, no matter how deep they got to go down on it.
That's what it seems like. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, but especially given the men's class of available hot shots. But look, would it be a bad decision if they only chose from short course athletes? I don't think so. I think that it's pretty clearly demonstrated this distance skews short course dominant anyway.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that's a. I don't think that's the wrong bet to take in any capacity.
Look at who your two world champions are. They're both Olympians that race at the WTCS distance this year.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's a very logical decision. But again, I think it's what Talbot said. It's, hey, what's your plans? Are you going to do Kona Nice this year? Yeah. Okay, we're not picking you as a hot shot. I think that's what they learned in 2024, that they're not.
But that's what you guys are forgetting about the other series. It's like there might be athletes that still want to do WTCS racing to keep like their ranking or to do more racing. Like, you never know.
I don't think I think WTCS racing is a lot easier on the body for them to pop in and out at T100 versus doing 5 Ironman events. Completely different.
Look, I think it should just, again, I just think that T100 has all the momentum here.
Yeah. I'm going to keep banging my drum. I think they need to go up to 25 athletes, and they need to have 5 wild cards in their back pocket to give out whenever they deem it necessary. If you have your Sam Laidlows or Lucy Charles that don't take the contracts, and you have people that are not, I just lost my train of thought.
No,
People
look,
go ahead.
25 always seems like a great idea 2 weeks before the race. But when we get to Monday of race week, there's all year, there's been these last minute dropouts, and then they can't even fill the field. Right?
Yeah, but if you go up to 25, then you don't have to worry about that. Look, Pat, we've looked at it all year. The wait list is so freaking long for people that want to get into these races.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does this. I don't think it does this series any good to say we're going to roll down to 25 and we're going to put in 5. We're going to put in 5 extra people in the men and the women's field. I think
if the depth of field was there, I would agree with it. But I think the problem is, which even answers literally the last question you just asked, you have a lot of these athletes, and their focus is not the series. Their focus is how many series can I race in and how much money can I make from racing Super League, World Triathlon. I mean, it's like there's so many different Ironman series now, and these athletes aren't focusing on them. Like, when they see a high caliber of athletes focusing on it, and then you're not watching the grand final, and there's nearly 30 minutes from first to 19th place, I could see them lowering it. But right now, maybe, just maybe in the men's strength of field, you could do it. But why deal with the headache of trying to replace the slots when, 17 men started the grand final? Well, sorry, more than that. 20 started, but 17 finished. It's like...
Yeah, and these and 3. I think the 3 that dropped out all dropped out on the bike. So
but it's also just filling the race. Like, it feels empty with 20 people.
No, I don't think it. I disagree. I
strongly disagree. Now,
I just
watching the season unfold.
Look, Kyle. Would I love there to be 25? Yes. We have not had a race this year on the men or the women's side that the strength of field was achieved, in my opinion. The depth of field was achieved, in my opinion, to have 25 in it. The only thing that could have changed this weekend potentially was if Yelagines had the way that his flight could have worked out. But Justus Nieschlag, had a great race. I think came 6th place. So he filled in, he slotted in. But I just don't see a world yet where we need to go to 25. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah, agree.
My problem is these athletes are notified a week before or even like 3 days before of so-and-so had an injury for the last 3 weeks that they've been dealing with, and now they've just pulled out of the race. And now I have 3 days to decide, like, whenever I'm not on contract. So I've been eyeing this 70.3 happening in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but
that same problem is that exacerbated by more athletes missing when you add 25 athletes. So then there's like a constant of 22 athletes racing.
Yeah.
And then it's just more headache for the race organizations that have created media, that have made all these reports, that have done all the marketing and all that. And then they got to go switch it out. No. I don't think so personally.
Look, would I love the number to get to 25 or 30? Yes. Does it need to be there right now? I mean, all year it demonstrated that we're not there yet.
Yeah. Any other hot takes you guys got?
I think that's it. But I just want to say that we will be taking a little break before we start to build up for 70.3 World Championship. So we'll be off air for probably a week or two. Then we'll begin to build back up. But just want to thank everyone for listening along. It's been one heck of a year. We've seen growth like no numbers that we ever imagined. So we can't thank all of you guys enough. Can't believe the T100 series has come to an end on their final year. But with that being said, we'll see you in the next one.